Welcome everybody. It's going to be off the chain today. You know what? I'm with my boy here. His name is Anthony White. He's an author and writer. I mean, he has a testimony that's very, very strong. His book is titled "From Nothing to Something," so you can guess what this is. You know what it's all about. So yes, I'm looking forward to his testimonial along with his book. So I'm gonna do this. Without further ado, let me open this doorway. Anthony, how you doing?
Doing good, brother. How you doing?
Hey, doing fine, doing fine. Before we, because your book titled "From Nothing to Something" is powerful, and earlier I know we had our conversation earlier about the, it's more, it's not a people evolution, it's a more of a planet evolution, and the planet that was evolving with technology. And the thing about it is, for those like us that have, and I'm talking about, when I talk about ethnic background, something like that, we're talking about those who had nothing and went through a lot of things, to that, been there and done that. Our level, no matter what, from, like I said, back in the day, from the 70s, 80s, when there were no technology like this. And when 1881 kicked off, and we just started getting, well, 70, no, 1980 and 81 kicked off with computers. I went to the military trying to figure out, what these are, because I never dealt with a computer before. But the one thing that we dealt with is survival.
Yeah.
Okay, and we go from survival to trying to get a normality of things, and that's the one thing they can't take away from you, because no matter how the planet evolves in technology from back then to now, you would know how to adapt and continue to grow and excel. And that's what I love about your book, From Nothing to Something, because you can always say, you've been there and done that, but you don't hold on nobody. You just being that example. So do me a favor. Before we get into your book, tell us all a little bit about yourself.
Okay. My name is Anthony White. I was born and raised here in Detroit, Michigan. I have four sisters. I'm the only boy. Um, Growing up in Detroit, it I'm not gonna say it was hard and it was easy. It was like a little bit of both, and just you know, living how Detroit, sometimes you come from struggle, sometimes you could have it all. So, I had both lifestyles, so, you know, it was hard and, it wasn't hard, but I love Detroit, been here my whole life, 38 years of age, I'll be 39 July 26th. I have three beautiful kids and, you know, I'm trying to make it in this world as becoming an author.
Excellent, excellent. Actually, you are author now. That you are an author. So I want to
Sure.
put that out there for you now to the public. Like that back thing up here, right over here up top.
Yeah.
Because I was originally from Philadelphia, and so we talk about the city and in Detroit. I did my hangouts in Detroit, and it depends where you're at, but it also depends what you make of it, and that's what you did. You take care of your family and all this stuff. You're more than a survivor. Okay. Uh, uh, you want to make sure that not only just, what, and no matter what level that you're in, from knowing about you, is that you still handle business. You still take care of everything, and you make it on an even keel, so that making sure there's food on the table, all that stuff. I look at the unity between you and your wife. I just have to do it that way, because if mine's, my lady was in here, she probably smacked me in the back of the head like, "What? This ain't no man show. It's a people show." I'm like, "Yeah,
Right.
you're right, baby. It's a people show." I said, "Okay, it's a family show too as well." So
Yes.
what I look at is us to escalate. We want to do. You get that feeling that there's inside, that there's more to do just than right here. There's more to life. That, having the best of things. There's nothing wrong with that. It's you're not like, okay, this is it, and you don't believe that just by your book. You don't believe this is it. This is as far as it goes, because
Yeah.
you've been somewhere already that you know that there's only one part from that is death. You know,
Right.
the death, jail, or God thing. But when you at the bottom, you know, people are like, what? Listen, you have no idea. That's a whole community level on its own. I keep telling
Yeah.
people that, yeah, I'm talking about homelessness. When you're at the bottom and they create a community, that's a whole nother world of its own. Buy, sell, and trade, your socks, your shoestrings. I'm telling you by fact, selling the
Yeah.
shoestrings and all the crazy stuff. And,
Yeah.
but anyway, all right, now, your book, From Nothing to Something. Uh, uh, Tell us a little bit about the book.
Okay. So I want to start off by what made me choose that title from nothing to something. So basically, as the man who I am now, I wasn't always this man. So, I had to go through I had to experience not having nothing to, getting something. So, I just really, put my truth in there, and just really wanted the people to know, like, I like the person who I am now. I wasn't always this person. I went through the struggles. I know how it is to not have nothing. So what I'm trying to do is give the audience and the crowd, you know what I'm saying, like a piece of me and like I said, my truth, and let them know it's okay not to have nothing, but you will have something. You just gotta make it through the dark times and through the storm and keep fighting and pushing and you know that's that's how the title came about. Like I said, everything in there is my truth. It's a real testimony.
That's nice. That's nice. So then, how did you come to write the book? I mean, what
Uh,
inspired you to start writing this type of particular book?
it's funny you asked that. I'm gonna tell you a story. So, I was like, how people start rapping and whatever. Like, when you're going
Mm,
through certain pain or whatever. So I'm gonna use like, one of my all-time greatest, favorite rappers that's passed on years ago, Tupac. He was putting his, all the stuff that he was going through. He was putting his feelings and everything into rap. So, I tried to be a rapper and it just didn't work out for me. I was like, no. So I just picked up the pen and a pad one day and I just started writing how I was
mm,
feeling. And that led me into writing this book because each day I wrote something down, like as far as like what I was going through or like my mental stage, So it was just like, let me write this down. I could have broke, I didn't break, but it was just like, let me just write this down and see how it go. Because, the stuff I was rapping about, I'm like, no, this ain't gonna sound good in rap. So I said, forget the rap, man, started writing everything down. And that's how, from nothing to something came about. Like I said, it was just me, my truth, my testimony, and, you know, I always wanted to be an author, like my whole entire life. So, I just took a shot at it and look at where I'm at now.
cool, cool. Because I was reading a few things. You know what? Actually, and it started even from the beginning. In your first chapter, it said, "I didn't grow up believing greatness was meant for me."
Yes.
That's wow, wow. Now I'm starting to wonder. You know what? How would you describe that just statement? Now let me do this. It says, "I didn't grow up believing greatness was meant for me. I grew up learning how to survive, how to keep going even when nothing makes sense, how to look strong on the outside while feeling unsure on the inside." What would you mean by that? Because somehow that's meant for a lot of, for everyone. It's also meant for kids growing up, like say, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be the next president, or I want to be. I'm gonna leave that alone too. But I want to
Right.
be, because you can be now after what we discovered here. You can
Yes.
be, anybody can be a president. But I'm gonna leave that
Yes.
alone. That's okay. Uh, uh, oh, and then you want to be a teacher or something, teacher or pastor or whatever.
Yes.
And this is, you said I didn't grow up believing greatness was meant for me. Can you
So
imagine how many people think the same thing?
yes. So to elaborate on that just a little bit. So, as far as like, the
Mm,
way I grew up, it wasn't easy for me, so I didn't always have like, the best of the clothes, the best of the shoes or whatever. And respectfully, I'm gonna just put it out there. My mother was a single mother, so it was like kind of struggling in the household. Man, it was days we ate pork and beans and hot dogs Monday through Friday. You know what I mean? So it was like, I never thought that I would be at this point where I'm at in my life now, because I was just always like, hey, I gotta survive. So when I say survive, it means doing whatever. I wasn't out here doing any like criminal activities or nothing, but even if it was, let's say I got a radio for Christmas, I would try to go sell the radio just to have some money in my pocket. So I never thought that, and I never visualized none of this. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, to be honest, I just felt like, hey, I'm just living to be living. So
yes.
that's where that came from.
Man, because that is and the other, yeah, that also applies for growing up, how to survive. But that is kind of, I mean, that is so strong about believing, greatness wasn't meant for me. And it makes me feel like there's a lot of children, not just a teenager, actually preteens, struggling, trying to find their identity, or they can't believe that they can move forward. Matter of fact, do better than that. There are those like us that was somehow we ended up in the street, and we adapted to a group that uh, uh, we thought that's all there was, because we didn't see the greatness in us anymore. We didn't even feel that. It was just living for the moment. Am I saying that right? Living for the moment.
Yes, 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 you are. And that's what not trying to jump the gun, but that's what I see here in my city. Even with the because I'm a motivational person. Even with the younger youth, like if I'm out and about and I see them, gang banging, and it's a bunch of, I don't know the terminology. They call them the YNs, the whatever, but I call
Mm.
them young brothers. I see them in the store or whatever, and I'm out with the kids, and I'm like, man, look, pick up a basketball. You know what I'm saying? Pick up here, take this pen and paper. You know what I'm saying? They be like, why? Because you never know what could happen. You know what I'm saying? You have to elevate your mind. Because
Yes.
I was once them. You know what I'm saying? I
Uh-huh.
felt like nothing was gonna ever work for me. I wasn't gonna have a nice car, a nice house. A nice woman. I just, it was just like, nothing is gonna work. But once I started elevating my mind and really, what I'm saying, figuring out my life, what I'm saying, God don't make no mistakes. Everything came together.
Yes. Amen to that. Yes. He doesn't. That's what I call, we were in some type of what they call it, the potter's wheel, but sometimes I feel like we were in some type of cooking pot. Because woo, there's more than being on a potter's wheel, because what we've been through. You know what I'm saying? That's some
Yes,
crazy stuff. That's crazy. I mean, mm, but that's the whole thing about your testimony when you said from nothing to something.
yes.
And then you wrote here right behind it. That's the funny part. I mean, I'm ready to start flipping pages, flipping pages in your book, and I'm still stuck looking at this, and it says, well, nothing. Nothing wasn't just a phase. Nothing wasn't just a phase. It was a mindset that have followed me everywhere. I know I want to read the rest of that paragraph, but you know what? I'll do that. I'll do that. Okay, nothing wasn't just a phase. It was a mindset that followed me everywhere. It showed up when I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize potential of staring back. That's a good point. It showed up when I tried to and failed, then failed again, and started questioning if effort even mattered. Man, that's just so deep.
So
It's
yeah, yeah.
go on.
Um, so just to touch on that a little bit, even when because
Mhm.
being a failure in life, it to me, it really hurt. It sucked, and even when you keep trying and trying, sometimes as men, we get to that point where it's like, man, you know what, I'm just gonna throw the towel in and I'm gonna give up. So even, what I'm saying, even when I kept trying and pushing and just talking to God, like, what I know now, what I'm saying, it wasn't my time. God wasn't ready to place me where I'm at now. So, you know, like in life, we have to take a bunch, a lot. I don't even have the amount of numbers. We have to take a lot of failures and losses to get, what I'm saying, to get to where we get. So that's
Yes,
that's why I wrote that, and that was a powerful, what you just read because I meant that because like I said, everything was just even when I looked in the mirror, I'm like I keep failing, and nothing is working. So like I said, I was at a breaking point. I wanted to give up, but I knew it was something else. I just couldn't put my finger on it. You know what I mean? And
yes,
like I said,
yes. That's funny when you mentioned it. Each time fail, you get back up. And I want to share something that was encouraging to you. Is that failure is basically if you don't try again, and yet something compelled you. Like you said, it definitely was a God thing. But for some reason, you had a destiny for something, because other you got back up multiple times. Multiple times. There's a time that you uh uh and I have to speak there for myself too, that was it. I'm done. I'm done with it. As a matter of fact, have you felt that at a point where you were just done with it, because it was like every time you got back up, you felt like you just get knocked back down again.
yes,
And it's almost like, man, I'm tired trying to get back up, because it almost seemed pointless. And that brings it back to where you said, I didn't grow up believing greatness was meant for me. After a while, that became the theme, and you're trying to break that glass of that negative portion that wants to keep you down.
yeah.
So how did you manage to put yourself back together? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Um, so you know,
Uh-huh.
it was this for one, for sure. I'm gonna give all praise to the Almighty God. It was God,
Yes. Yes.
and it was me trying to put it together because, like I said, I was just, I was at a point to where I'm like, you know what, and it wasn't an easy task, how I put that together. You know what I'm saying? I could only tell you and the people that's watching that it was just God because I gave up. I went in a deep depression. I'm like, man, nothing is working, and you know, something just came over me. And like I said, it's Almighty hot God because something came over me and I got right back in that spirit. It was this Holy Spirit that got into me, and I started my engine back up, and I went full throttle, man. Like I said, once I started going full throttle, that last time I never looked back. So I kind of like, I took my losses and my failures as, you know, I don't want to be a failure anymore. I don't want to lose anymore. You know what I'm saying? Many times I done lost and I failed on things. I'm like, I'm gonna keep pushing through. Like I said, if I took one loss or one failure, that was it. I like the way I think now. I'm like, if I fail at something, I'm gonna keep going. Back then, I was like, you know what, the heck with this. I don't even want to do it. And it'd be weeks and maybe months before I even started back doing it. And just the lack of not being focused. I can't say that because I wasn't focused back then. I'm more focused now on what I need to do as far as everything in this world. So just a lack of focus and you know just you know just just really wasn't caring. I'm gonna say that just really wasn't caring. And just in that mind frame, as thinking like a little boy, I'm like, ain't nothing ever gonna work, and I don't care. I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna be like this for the rest of my life, until, like I said, the Holy Spirit came over me and got me up and started my engine up and was like, no, all gas, keep going. You know what I mean? Just keep going. You have to keep pushing. You cannot just get in that mind frame and say, hey, I'm a failure. Because like I said, I beat myself up so much, Mr. Hill. Like I'm a failure. Nothing is gonna work. And you know what I'm saying? It was one of them. But you know, God sent the angels down on me, and they had my back.
Amen.
And everything is everything now.
Yes, yes. You've been through a lot, and the testimony itself, the positivity shows a lot more because the fact that the way this is written and it just keeps going towards the preteens and the teenagers because when you're growing up thinking that way, and that's a great start how you did that just to start off in your book. It's like, and I'm still running back to it. Every time I look at it, it says, "I didn't grow up believing greatness was meant for me."
Yeah,
It's just so many in that same situation. There's just so many. If they even think of that phrase by itself is an icon. That phrase by itself. And every time I keep looking at it, I'm trying to look at everything else to read on. But every time I go back and look at it, it's just like, wow. Can you imagine how many people and the kids that are in the schools that
yeah,
they 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 look at the board or at the teacher
yes.
and they want to study, but they really believe in their heart they're not going nowhere.
Now,
So, oh, go ahead.
now,
Uh,
because now we're gonna get a little deep. And now I have nephews, right? I just want to share this with people. I have nephews and little cousins that think like that. Here's my thing, right? Don't ever doubt yourself because I was one of them. Anybody, like I told you, I want to be as positive as I can for the world, for the younger youth. Anything, if it was up to me, I would talk to these younger youth if I can, and let them know, hey, just because you're not great at playing basketball or you know how to dribble, but you can get a 3 point, keep going. You know what I'm saying? Just because you don't
yes,
know what the teacher's talking about in school or you don't know this problem on the board, ask questions. You know what I'm saying? You have to be a student and let them be a teacher and take your notes. You know what I'm saying? I just want to let everybody know, never give up. Keep pushing. You know,
amen.
you have to keep
Yes,
pushing. No matter how hard it get, you know what I'm saying? It's a thing called life. You have to
yes,
keep pushing. You have to keep going.
yes, yes. That's definite. That's definitely you got to. And I'm glad you said it because that's all. Every time I kept thinking about that same thing, it's like in every avenue. And then there's those that get on the school bus and they're still thinking the same thing. It's like the same old day next day. And the main theme getting waking up in the morning and dragging themselves to go out to do something is always that one part. Is
Right.
it meant for me?
Right.
And that's the thing that's override that. And I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
They got to come over that hurdle so they
Yeah.
can see it is there. It's just that the enemy attacks them, and I'm not giving the devil no credit. It attacks them because he puts those little demonic little demons around, whispering in their ear like they can't be nobody, they can't do nothing for themselves or whatever, or the distractions around them where they feel that they're compelled to be nothing but street. And it's like, no, because if we weren't technically, to tell you the truth, ain't nobody was just born in the street. I mean, technically, I mean, we were born into an environment that made us feel like we were down and out, but we always wanted something mentally to
Yeah.
to move forward to achieve, no matter what nationality, race, ethics, or religion. The whole thing. The main thing is that you within yourself, as a human being, as a person, it like I said, it doesn't matter what color, nothing. you as a human being, one person, it's not just the environment, it's how you think about yourself within that environment.
Yes. Amen.
That's what I call the core. In your mind, the core is you. You got
Yes.
to think. You can. I shared somebody that says, what's funny? I was over by a park, and this one park had and my girls, they're all grown and stuff like that. But back then, they were just little babies. I'm a great grandfather, but back then they were babies, and they got one of them got kids now and stuff, and the other children. Woof, I got a whole boatload of them. I was gonna say an ocean liner of children. So, so anyway, grandchildren. So back in the day, I was looking at this park like, yeah, we're gonna go over to the park here. And when I looked at it and it had all these needles and all this the beer bottles and all this stuff there, I knew the area where we were at, but I wasn't thinking. And I'm going and I'm looking at it. And I'm going, oh man! But what tripped me out was across the actual bridge. Matter of fact, it was on Michigan Avenue. I went across the other side. It was kind of funny, and there was a park, beautiful park. And well, all I had to do was walk at least a mile and a half. We could do that on jogging if need be. That's a natural. Just before everybody said, "Hey, we're gonna do a mile and a half run." But what? But it is what it is. But we can't walk a mile and a half with our kids to go to a park that is beautifully set so they can see what the other side of life is like, even at a small scale like that. When we say we can't leave the environment, just like in California and South Philly, I moved from South Philly to West Philly before Atlantic City and New Jersey, New York. But in California, when I used to live in I lived in South Central, I lived in Compton, I lived in Long Beach, and then I ended up on Venice Beach. Now, one of the things in Watts was the start off, but at South Central, there was an area where they feel like you can't go any further. I mean, they showed a lot on the movies and stuff. Like, that's it. And I just kept thinking, but the funny part is, I was working at Continental Airlines at the time, and then I saw a whole different side of life. I didn't know the area that I moved into at that time. That's before the my testimony about the homeless adventure for 11 years, eating out of dumpster stuff. But matter of fact, but when you go into an environment and then you see that way, the people in the environment don't realize on the outside there's a better life. There's something out there. And somehow mentally we get stuck with that part, feeling that there's nothing great for me. It's right here. Just like in New York. New York, shoot, there's some of the people, you can see that. They just like in Detroit. When I was working up there as a paralegal up there at the oh my gosh, I'm gonna call him John Dingle. Young's courthouse.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about up there. Guy was out in the front. He had his CDs. He was selling CDs right out in the front of the table. And I was going like, oh, that's what I'm talking about. He was still trying to do something. If it couldn't be in one area, and the other guy around the corner would had his hot dogs and stuff, and those big old sausage hot dogs. So I was like, I said, if he can do it, then he's established with his hot dog wagon and all that. Dude's over here. He got a little plastic table from like Save-A-Lot or Sam's Wholesale. Whatever he got his hustle to get his table, he turned around and got his hustle to get his CDs. So that means each step takes you further, no matter what goes on. And like what you've written, you created an environment here. It's like it's like a confession of each step I've taken. It showed you how I was able to drive myself out of this. And I'm glad you mentioned, it's like, thanks be to God for this, because this is off the chain. I mean, this is the real world. The real world. That's what you're speaking. And you're speaking the real world out here. You're not being religious about it. You love God, Jesus Christ, Holy Spirit. But they got to understand you can't float. If you've never been in that, I'm going to do it this way. If anybody has never been in that type of environment or something like that, and You see a lot of floating in the clouds. Some of them may have a hard time to adjust. That that to them, they don't know there's more than just being there and floating in the clouds. They used to call it back in my day. You could be all spiritual but no earthly good. Okay, all spiritual, no earthly good. But when you get that, then that means you can't help nobody that's down there because too busy in the motion of judging. And those down there that's living in the real world, that's got to survive through all the stuff, the drive-bys, the stabbings. I'm just saying that because I still carry mine. I still carry mine all. I carry. That's funny. I'm laughing about it. But I say, I carry mine here. I don't know if you can actually even see it or not, but I carry a lot of. I carry. Yeah, you can't barely see it. That's what I mean because I was dark skinned it.
I
But
can see it a little bit.
yeah, but they were. I mean, it was very severe. I've carried that drive-by shootings, a crack pipe hole through my foot, and and yet I was out there eating rotten squid, down the Chinese outside the back of the Chinese restaurant downtown
Right.
LA and Skid Row. So when I'm sharing what Anthony was talking about on here, I didn't grow up believing greatness was meant for me. Although, I had parents before they went to the divorce mode, and I grew up in a environment of uh, 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 um, my generation is all ministers and stuff like that. Like I
Mhm.
was telling my boy Anthony, I said, my father, he had a way. Reverend Curtis Hill, something went south, and he didn't like it. He said he'll put that Bible down in a minute, roll up his sleeves, and get busy. And my mom was like, "Come on in, just come on in." That's it. It's a wrap. Come on in. I'm like, then you pick the Bible back up and go back to our church. And I'm just like, what the? But that was in the 50s and 60s. It was a whole different world. But then we
Yeah.
learned to evolve. The key thing is that those of us that even seeing that, it's how we perceive certain things. They looked at is where, like Sonny Liston, and them, they look at where it's I got to fight my way. I got to fight my way, and it's like, no, mentally we have to fight our way, not physically. Mentally, and actually in that mentally, it's actually prayer too. Okay,
Yeah.
and so what I'm been reading. I'm gonna go for another one here. You wrote here. It says, "I watched time move forward without me." You see, that's some crazy stuff. I watched time move forward without me. Comfort became dangerous. Now, that goes hand in hand in the most craziest way.
Yeah.
Fear convinced me that similar pain was safer than unknown change. I'll read it one more time because I want you to elaborate on that. I watched time move forward without me. Comfort became dangerous. Fear convinced me that familiar pain was safer than unknown change.
So with that one, as far as like the time, um, so it
Hmm.
was just really like, you know, um, ah, to elaborate on that, it's just I'm trying to find the right words to put with it, but just to sum it up for everything, for every, what I'm saying, everything that you read, it was just
Uh,
really like, time. I just felt like, the everything was just moving, going without me. So, basically you would see like I could say family members. You would see like family members having stuff and what I'm saying, other people just having stuff and I just felt like I was just stuck right there without nothing. What I'm saying? Everything was forward, time, all that, and I was just stuck with nothing. I was just there. I just felt like I was just there. Go around your family, your friends, or whatever, and they had everything, or they had nice cars or whatever. I'm on the bus. I'm catching taxi cabs. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm waiting on somebody to come get me that never showed up. You know what I mean? So it was just, it was one of those.
yeah, I've watched. Well, my youngest brother that died. The one before him. because my youngest and I rolled together in some interesting ways. But and I feel you on that because see, what I was looking at is that what happens is, and when that type of time, and I'll give an example. Uh, um, man, the only one example I'm looking at, I was thinking about when I was out there homeless. And I'm lifting my feet. You know what? Actually, that's a whole nother part about that. And I don't want to go far down to homeless. I don't want to get to that because even people that are living, not living, but just a certain like this is okay, and they accepted something, but they feel in their heart there's more. You get this. It's come stagnation. Stagnation. It's where you're at a halt. And I was thinking about me laying on the ground with my foot or my legs up against the wall, hitting the crack pipe, and what I'm saying, while everybody else is doing something, and I'm watching people, drive with nice vehicles, and people going home to, eat, have lunch, dinner, even wash dishes or whatever. But I'm out here in the street, and I'm with dirty newspaper and rotten
Yeah,
squids and uh 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 what do you call it? Open fortune cookies,
yeah,
for a meal because I'm stuck somewhere that I gave up, but yet time was still going by day and night, day and night. Everybody else is doing something, and here I am just existing. And we all feel that way at times, whether we are in poverty or middle class, or whether we are out there in shelters. We've got to change that attitude, that mental break. We got to have a mental breakthrough because we're still thinking about there's nothing great for me out here. There's just nothing for me. It's just nothing. So
yeah.
time passes by, and I'm wishing I could be have that what that person has, or
Right.
almost. It's like just. It's not always being wishing to be like that person. You want to replace yourself with that person, basically.
Right.
People say, "Oh, I wish I could be like you." No, no, you don't. You want to replace me. You want to
Yeah.
be that person, and
Yeah.
because it's hard to go home and keep thinking the same thing. And
Yeah.
that is one of the, okay, you got it.
And I just want to share this too. So since you kicking out some stuff, and I am too. So it'll be like I go over family house or whatever. Let's just say, prime example, they doing chicken
Uh,
and spaghetti, right? They might have 100 wings. They used to treat me like crap. I get the bottom of the barrel, I only get two wings and like a scoop of spaghetti. I'm like, I'm not a freaking animal, you know what I'm saying? But at the time I got it, I'm like, you know what?
uh,
This is everything that's in the book because it's like time was passing me by. I was just there. I'm like, okay, I'm just there. So if
uh,
other people and that's another thing too. Certain
uh,
people can see the way what I'm saying, that you are. They can see through you. So if you just there and they know you just here to be there, what I'm saying? Most people, I'm not gonna say all, but some people don't care about the next person. So if they see me, I'm just there, I'm just whatever, you know what I'm saying? They got every right to well they don't, but they got every right in their head to be like, all right, we can treat him like nothing. Because if I feel like I ain't nothing and I know I ain't doing nothing and I'm just passing time by, how you think the next person feels? Especially if they know you.
yes.
So it was one of those. But like I said, right now I'm at a point in my life where everything is great. I'm not looking back. I'm not, nothing that I went through. I'm not gonna let it defeat me anymore. It's time. It's time to keep climbing up that ladder. No looking
Very
back. No
good.
regret.
Very good, very good. And for all of you, just let you know that the QR code that's below the picture where he's sitting at, the QR code is the access to be able to take a look at his book. Okay, he's on a global distribution level. So yes, so it's easier. So if you don't know how to get to it, just grab your phone, put it on photo. I think that's still the same way. You put it on or not photo. No, you just put camera. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize. When you grab your phone and you press to open up camera, you hold the camera up in front of the QR code. and the QR code will take you exactly to where his book is located, where you can read or make your purchase for his book, From Nothing to Something. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna be honest with you, you can actually utilize this book as a gift for somebody else that doesn't have, and they feel that way because you know they have the potential, but something's blocking them. Okay, they have the potential, but something's blocking them, and that's like I say again, from nothing to something. And just to start off with, I didn't grow up believing believing greatness was meant for me. That is exactly what we would feel, what we always feel inside, but we don't want to share. We don't want to share it with anybody or everyone. We didn't want to share that. We wanted to keep it within ourselves. But the more we bottle ourselves up with it, the more pain it happens, and the more depressed we come. And do you know that depression becomes a not only just a mental instability, but when you start either losing weight or gaining weight or doing suicidal stuff, which that's another part I have, back in the day when I was in my younger years, suicidal stuff or taking pills or, whatever it is that's going to mess with you, then now you're physically hurting yourself. It ain't mental no more. It was mental depression. Now it's in that physical depression, and that physical depression is harmful. That's where it does you in. So you've got to be able to change all that because there's something within you, and there's something that could be blocking you, and that's only but the enemy stopping you from whatever it is to excel. Because here we have someone right here, Anthony White, who's actually sharing something from, and he's in Detroit. I was like, Detroit, woo woo, because I know Detroit. Not every place that everybody think is bad. It's a huge Detroit. It's huge. I mean, I went down Telegraph Way, not straight up down Michigan Avenue to Detroit. I'm talking about going down Telegraph. And I said, where am I? I said, you still in Detroit? I said, what? And it was nice. And matter of fact, if you get past the front part of Detroit, you'll see that all around Detroit, it's not really bad as it seems. And we're not talking about going into the area we used to call the dirty, dirty. Okay. That was another hangout that I was at. And then, people, I'll just leave it alone. So that was some testimonial hangout. And some of even my employees, they helped me. They carry furniture. We went to that area, and they was like, "Ooh," and I said, "Yeah, we know. Please don't come here." And I know Detroiters already know what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
And the other testimony I shared with them, if y'all know about Cass Corridor, my lady came from down in Cass Corridor, so she made it out, and made something of herself. So this is what I'm talking about. What he's saying is straightforward. It's like I say, straight dope, but this is straightforward. I mean, I didn't grow up believing greatness was meant for me, but once you felt like you believing that it wasn't meant for you, it actually was. Ain't that something to think about it? The moment you thought that it wasn't, that's because it was. Something is stopping you from knowing who you really are in greatness.
Yeah.
That's the way the enemy try to keep you blocked out from God. You know what I'm saying? And the thing about it is, if you still able to move around and feel something that's compelling you to excel, there's something more to you than what it is right now. Then that's that Holy Spirit within you, because it's the one who keeps you connected with God, even when you can't pray. It prays. It's an intercessory prayer for you, so it keeps you moving. And we're talking about the real world. It keeps you moving. So I am very grateful. I feel blessed and I'm thankful. It's a great friend of mine. We family, actually. We family. We're gonna be toasting pretty soon. Pop up the bottle of champagne or whatever.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with that in a bottle of wine. I ain't lying. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? So that time is coming, but I also want to let you know that it from nothing to something is available, and I want y'all to tap into that. So that and again, I want y'all to feel that vibe, because I really want you to be able to, if as long as it helps you go forward, also bless somebody else with a copy of something. because it is very powerful. It's very unique, and it's got that oomph that God had said something through this man. I don't care how you look at it. I mean, he's a man of God, whether you think he's supposed to be behind a pulpit or something or whatever. But you don't understand the class level where Jesus was walking, it was straight on the low key. Okay? Yet he's a man of God. So if we walk in the streets as a normal person and we ain't got to be, the half or alto or whatever, we're somebody trying to encourage you to go forward and let you know that God is there for you. Well, don't chuck that down. Think about the connection with the Holy Spirit. It's like, you ever heard that about spirit, like-minded spirits, connection spirits? You can tell whether you're going to go forward or you're going to go backwards. It is your choice today. So anyway, Anthony, all right. I want you to go and, anything you want. I'm going to have you back on the show again, but on the backstage. And thank you for being up close and personal with me on here, because that's what the Backstage Pass is about. Okay. And I also want to see you when we get to the rebuild our new studio, the APN TV Media Studio. I want you to be there physically on that set. But do you have anything to share to your readers and viewers?
Yes, just one last thing. No matter, don't, first off, I want to start off by saying, I want to end this by saying, don't let nobody tell you you're not capable of doing anything. That's what the book is for. From nothing to something, read it. It's all positivity. Just keep moving forward. When the devil try to attack you, shake them off. Stay prayed up. Talk to God every day, and I wish everybody good luck and greatness out here. And thank y'all.
That's what's up. All right, everybody. All right, we're going to see you next week. So again, the QR code that you see on there, that QR code goes to his book titled "Nothing from Nothing to Something," written by Anthony White. Hey, I'm glad to have you on board. All right, see everybody next week.
Good night.
There you go.